New areas such as AVGC, content creator labs, creation of university townships, girls' hostels for STEM institutions and education, the National Telescope Scheme, Divyang Kaushal Yojana, which collectively address the human capital formation, digital creativity, gender inclusion, frontier science, and disability inclusive growth. शिक्षा मंत्रालय के नेतृत्व में इन सत्रों में प्रमुख रिफॉर्म्स पर ध्यान केंद्रित किया गया, जिनमें शिक्षा से रोजगार और उद्यम संबंधी स्थायी समिति, एवीजीसी कंटेंट क्रिएटर लैब, यूनिवर्सिटी टाउनशिप का निर्माण, स्टेम एजुकेशन के लिए लड़कियों के छात्रावास, राष्ट्रीय टेलीस्कोप योजना, दिव्यांग कौशल योजना शामिल है, जो सामूहिक रूप से ह्यूमन रिसोर्स का निर्माण करने का विजन रखते हैं, डिजिटल रचनात्मकता, क्रिएटिविटी, जेंडर समावेशन, इंक्लूजन, फ्रंटियर साइंस और दिव्यांग या विकलांगता समावेशी विकास को संबोधित करना. And ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Dr. Vineet Joshi, Secretary, Department of Higher Education, to present his remarks.
Thank you very much. Namaskar and a very good afternoon. I also welcome the Honorable Minister, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan Ji, Honorable Minister for Education, Shri Piyush Goyal Ji, Honorable Minister of Commerce, Dr. Virendra Kumar Ji, Honorable Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment, Shri Ashwani Vaishnav Ji, Honorable Minister of Information and Broadcasting, Shri Rao Indrajit Singh Ji, Honorable Minister of State for Planning, and Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji, Honorable Minister of Science and Technology. I also welcome all the participants to this concluding session of the budget webinar. I would like to begin by expressing our sincere
He lost the audio.
his guidance provides a strong and unifying direction as we now move into the implementation focused concluding segment of today's program. Sir, we structured today's deliberation into 5 breakout sessions. The Union Budget announced 7 major initiatives under this theme. 3 of them have been consolidated to enable sharper discussions, stronger convergence between ministries, and more coherent implementation pathways. Together, these 5 sessions covered the full scope of the announcements and will allow us to translate Honorable Prime Minister's vision into clear time-bound actions. I would now briefly give the overview of the breakout sessions. The session of Niti Aayog on High-Powered Education to Employment and Enterprise Standing Committee focused on positioning the service sector as a central driver of growth, employment, and exports, aligned with the 10% global services share by 2047. This committee is expected to examine global demand shifts, employment elasticity, AI-driven transitions, and regulatory fragmentation. This session helped us in defining a nationally prioritized set of high potential service subsectors along with policy, regulatory, and talent pipeline architecture, which is needed to position the services sector as a core driver of growth, employment, and exports. It also helped us define how AI and emerging technologies could be systematically embedded across schooling, higher education, and skilling pathways, and how we can collectively move towards the 10% global services share target by 2047. The session led by Ministry of Information and Broadcasting was on Orange Economy, AVGC Content Creator Labs. It discussed operationalizing AVGC Creator Labs in 15,000 secondary schools and 500 colleges, ensuring standardization, faculty development, and strong industry partnerships. This session helped us in defining the national rollout strategy for the AVGC Creator Labs. The session led by DPIIT, which was on New National Institute of Design, articulated the strategic and structural blueprint for establishing a new NID in the Eastern region, strengthening India's design education ecosystem, and aligning it with national economic and cultural priorities. The session led by the Department of Divyangjan, which was on Divyang Kaushal Yojana. The two sessions which were led by the Department of Higher Education and Ministry of Education, which were on university townships and girls' hostel for STEM. The session on university townships defined the structural blueprint for the first 5 university townships, the challenge route methodology, corridor-aligned academic offerings, governance, and options of financing models required to create integrated academic industrial townships. The session on Girls Hostel for STEM helped us in discussing the district level planning norms, capacity models, VGF, PPP, and grant structures needed for universal hostel availability, thereby enhancing women participation in STEM by ensuring that women in STEM have safe, proximate, and affordable residential access. On Divyangjan Kaushal Yojana, the session defined an industry-linked, outcome-based skill framework that moves beyond supply-driven models. It helped us define disability-wise course baskets, employer partnership models, verification systems for placements, rural livelihood-linked pathways, and use of AI, thereby ensuring sustainable economic participation of Divyangjans. The session led by the Ministry of Science and Technology, which was on National Telescope Scheme for establishing 4 telescope infrastructure facilities, it discussed the phased execution plan for installation of 4 telescope infrastructure, including the technological roadmap, precision engineering partnerships, HR development strategy, science outreach plan, and the critical technologies that India must indigenize for world-class astronomical capacity, thereby strengthening India's indigenous capacity in advanced astronomy and precision engineering. We now have a better idea about a detailed roadmap, along with envisaged challenges, clearly defined implementation pathways, and the institutional mechanisms required to operationalize each budget announcement. We further encourage all the participants to keep on engaging deeply so that today's insights can translate into concrete results. With collective efforts, we can convert the Honorable Prime Minister's vision into measurable national outcomes and accelerate our journey towards Viksit Bharat 2047. I would now request the session moderators, beginning with Professor Govind Rangarajan, Director of IISc, Bangalore, to let us know about their session deliberations in more details. Over to you, Professor Rangarajan.
Thank you. So let me summarize the discussion on the university townships. We had an excellent discussion with world-class experts participating. Everyone agreed that the idea of a university township is very important and timely. What we discussed were some of the mechanics. For example, location was something everybody thought was an important criteria for the success of this concept. One suggestion was to have it as a satellite town of a major city where one can use the basic infrastructure of the city like hospitals, schools, etc. It was also felt that it should be within 1 hour of an international airport and should have enough scope for jobs for spouses. It was also felt that land allocation should be strategic in nature, taking into account existing industrial corridors. And also, they should be located in states that have a visionary state leadership, because here the state contribution is also very important in taking this forward. As far as design of the township is concerned, it was felt that it should be compact and have mixed zone use rather than spread out over a large area where you have difficulties, just going back and forth between different parts of this township. It also needs to have if it's a satellite city, to have the city's public transportation integrated with that township. And equally important, it should be a sustainable campus that's organically linked to the local communities and local urban bodies. It was felt that it is important that you integrate with the local community rather than be something which is like an ivory tower, which does not communicate with the local communities. It was also felt that the committee which oversees the design and operation of this township should be shared by the state chief minister. The hope is this access-led expansion will now give way to outcome-led expansion. Industry collaboration was another important component everybody touched upon. Having a research park, of course, is very important. Industry R&D labs should be located in these townships. That is very critical. Equally important, these R&D facilities should be shared with universities belonging to that cluster. This would alleviate uneven access to lab facilities that is currently there. And one should avoid duplication of infrastructure, of course. Then there should be a lot of startup funding in these townships. So they should be initially funded well, and then, of course, they go out on their own. And it was also felt to make this whole enterprise attractive, faculty members should be permitted to spend time in the industry so that there's a much closer integration between the industry and the academia. And when you come to financial sustainability, it was felt that tuition fees should be, substantial so as to cover the costs. They cannot be highly subsidized tuition fees. And it was also essential that industries provide sustainable funding for the township, for the operation of the township. And since you will have land, it is also important to monetize the land resources effectively for financial sustainability. And one suggestion was that the government should provide 50% of the funds for the first 20 years to make the whole thing sustainable. And talking of students, it was felt that there need to be change when you talk of these university townships. You just don't admit students based on their marks in, say, JEE Advanced and so on. You need builders who can actually build products so that the country becomes a product nation. And therefore, the admission criteria should change accordingly here. And it should also be very inclusive. State university students should have access through credit transfers, online classes, etc. And then how do you measure success? Of course, it's important that, only if you quantify something, you can actually improve it. So as far as learning outcomes, there are standard things like student satisfaction, placement, etc. But one should also develop quantitative and qualitative measures of industry collaboration and then research productivity. And these should be monitored by industry advisory boards, research committees, and alumni. All these are important components in the monitoring process. And the timelines is that within 1.5 to 2 years, you can have the design and the infrastructure done. Then scaling and expansion over the next 2 years. But for all townships, 5 years was felt to be ambitious but reachable goal to establish all the 5 university townships. So with this, I will stop. But on the whole, everybody thought, that this was an excellent idea that has been expounded by our Honorable PM, and we should all work towards realizing this vision. Thank you.
Professor Govindan Rangarajan, thank you for your remarks, sir. Let's learn more about the outcomes of the breakout sessions that happened today. Let us welcome Dr. Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General, CII, expert from Niti Aayog. Dr. Banerjee.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers, Secretary. Thank you for the introductions initially. Sir, I report back on the breakout session on high-powered Education to Employment and Enterprise Standing Committee. It was really a very, very lively session, taking the advice from the Honorable Prime Minister's speech in the morning. And as guided by the Ministry of Education and Niti Aayog, we deliberated in detail to conclude with 5 priorities and action items. And the deliberations today highlighted several important themes on strengthening the budget announcement on high-powered Education to Employment to Enterprise Standing Committee and enhancing the role of the services sector in India's growth story. The 5 priority items and action items. The first, if I can, is the centers of excellence as innovation hubs. This was with AI and tech intervention. The recommendation for one to establish AI and tech-enabled centers of excellence, each with a focus on sectors such as agri-tech, health tech, tourism, education, and digital services. Second, build these as private-public hubs, bringing together government, industry, and academia. And the third sub-point on that was to enable state governments, which were to develop regional centers of excellence clusters aligned with the local industry strength. The second major area was a skills-first education ecosystem. So we move towards a skills-driven learning pathways as a part of the of degree-centric education, integrate skills-based learning with aligned with the emerging technologies which we deliberated upon, and promote continuous learning through certifications and industry-led programs. Industry-led program was underlined. And the third piece in that, the skills-first education ecosystem was integrating the skills, technical skills with creativity as well as problem solving and critical thinking. The third issue that came up was institutionalization of an industry academia partnership. So bridging the gap between between learning and the employment, which was felt critical. So how do we increase industry participation in curriculum design in particular, and as well as institutional governance. Also expanding internships, industry immersion, and practical project exposure. And the third, of course, was on the education industry clusters to be encouraged, and also align educational institutions that are linking learning, research, and job creation. And also, of course, how the local industry should connect to the academic institution. That's going to be critical. The fourth part of the entire discussion was on scaling research, innovation, and also applied learning. So our country's competitiveness would largely depend on the stronger research and innovation ecosystems. We all felt that, and to encourage greater private sector investment in R&D and innovation platforms, which can be enhanced much. So develop innovation hubs, sandboxes, and project-based learning models, and also focus on applied research that drives enterprise creation as well as technology adoption. The fifth was creation of new jobs, which was very, very critical and important. With every revolution, industrial revolution, there will be new jobs emerging, and India can and shall align with emerging requirements of the industry. This was quite critical. There's always been a fear, but there will be new job opportunities always coming up with any advent of any technology. So I end with one important point, which is about coordinated policy and measurable outcomes. So this was really that the progress of will require alignment across governments as well as industry and state engagements. So strengthening policy coordination between center, states, and industry stakeholders. Second, track outcomes that would through clear indicators on employment, enterprise creation, and technology adoption. And how do we ensure implementation at scale through collaborative national and state level incentives? So once again, what is now required was collective action, building centers of excellence. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrajit Banerjee. Now we welcome remarks from Sri Chaitanya Chenchelekar, VP and CTO, Whistling Woods International.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. The breakout session in the morning for deployment of content creation labs in schools and colleges, along with corresponding curriculum for the same, was excellent. We had 5 or 6 outcomes and suggestions. So one was that it will ensure completeness of education, especially in the age of AI, where human skills are needed for creative thinking, critical thinking, narrative thinking, design thinking. It will widen the spectrum for higher education and career pathways in media and entertainment through integration with the national education policy and emphasis on multidisciplinary learning, design thinking, and creative education. This will also help understand, it will increase understanding of Bharatiya narrative traditions, folk art and music, which will also enable a unique narrative storytelling style as well as a visual style to emerge out of India. What was recommended that we look at a phased implementation strategy, where we start off with pilot institutions and a kickstarting of teacher training, followed by expansion based on feedback and institutional readiness, and ensure national saturation and higher education linkage in phase 3. Industry collaboration and participation will be critical in providing mentorship, internships, real-world projects, and curriculum inputs, ensuring that the training remains aligned with evolving industry requirements. It was also noted that we need to ensure promotion of regional inclusion, that it should ensure participation from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, enabling students across the country to access creative education and digital opportunities. The key takeaway and action points are as follows. One is identification of institutions to identify suitable secondary schools and HEIs at the pilot stage and then at the saturation stage. Second is curriculum development, and this was significantly stressed by everybody, that we have to make sure that the curriculum that is built is both in alignment with NEP principles and multidisciplinary learning frameworks, but it is also includes all the inputs that are needed to create robust education in foundational education in creative and performing arts. The third key takeaway was faculty capacity building. This needs, because this is the first time that this will end up happening in the government vertical, so we need to approach it in a very strong and robust manner to incorporate as many faculty as possible to take things forward. The fourth point was infrastructure and technology framework. Since we are a techno-creative industry, we have to make sure that standardized high-quality infrastructure, including hardware, software tools, and digital platforms, is available across the country to ensure that the learning quality remains uniform or standardized and does not drop on account of lack of broadband connectivity or lack of computing access. The last is possibly the most important, which is awareness and outreach. Communication campaigns will need to be undertaken to inform students, parents, and educators about emerging career opportunities in the media and entertainment, AVGC, and creative economy sectors, and what are the higher education verticals that students who do study foundational education in creative and performing arts can take up. There were 3 or 4 concerns that were raised. One was the shortage of skilled faculty, which was kind of the topic that was highlighted the most. The second was the infrastructure requirements, so reliable electricity, broadband connectivity, and digital infrastructure. The third was career awareness and parental acceptance, without which none of these projects will really roll out in a successful manner. And we have to make sure that the parents and students do not lack awareness of this area. And the fourth is to make sure that we have industry link, that the industry is linked to both the curriculum development as well as industry mentorship to make sure that the students acquire skills that are needed today as well as tomorrow. So this was a brief summary of the breakout session for content creation labs in schools and colleges. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Chaitanya Chanchalikar. We now welcome Shri Sridhar Mari, NID alumnus, AI startup founder and designer from Bengaluru, to share his thoughts with us.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. The honorable ministers and the executive leadership, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Just got a couple of slides here to sort of sum up on what we've discussed in the morning. So the topic that we've taken is design as a catalyst for national progress. And this, can you just, I'll just share my screen rather. Okay, so somebody's shifting the slides. Okay, so the panel was diverse and it included design practitioners, industry representatives, educators, and policy stakeholders. Next slide, please. So the fundamental key takeaway for this panel was design must evolve from being perceived as an aesthetic layer or a specialist discipline to being recognized as a strategic capability that can be embedded across governance, industry, education, and society, influencing everything that we design in this country, right? For example, whether we're building cities or we're designing cities or designing public services, everywhere there is actually design input that's required, and that's what is what we are suggesting as a key takeaway. Now, can you just go to the next slide, please? Yeah. There are four thematic dimensions that have emerged from this. One is the number one is design as a national infrastructure to pave the way for economic development and industrial competitiveness. Here, what happens is we've studied other developed nations and how they have actually used design as a fundamental tenet for their national progress. Now, in the US, the industries that were driven by design have outperformed S&P 500 index by 219%, right? So that's the kind of impact that design can have. Similarly, in the UK, one of the studies has indicated that about 90 billion pounds were being added to UK's national economy every year based on the design interventions that they're taking. And that's influencing nearly 5% of the GDP for UK. Now, the gross value added, actually. So that is the kind of impact that we can envisage from design, and especially when we use design as a strategic tool to build the public infrastructure and make the industry competitive and so on. The second theme that has emerged is design as the cultural capital that's embedded with Indian identity. Now, today, we all talk about Japanese design and German design and Scandinavian design, but then there is enormous amount of strength in Indian design, but we don't really quantify it, or we don't even qualify it because it's so diverse and pluralistic, and we need to actually study it and bring it out as a national cultural capital for the progress of this nation. And we will double click on that in the next couple of slides. And the third one is the impact of AI, automation, and the future of creative work, because today AI is not just limiting itself to automating repetitive jobs, but it's also encroaching the realm of cognitive work and creative work, right? So that kind of automation is right here and it's happening, and it has a huge impact on job losses and so on, not just design but across the board. Now, how do we actually use this opportunity to create or even to think of the newer and emerging jobs that would sort of come up during this intervention or the impact of AI? That's the third thematic dimension that we discussed. And the fourth one is how do we build future design leaders and design entrepreneurs? Today, typically designers get trained, they come out of the institutes, and then they take up a job and of course contribute to the economy. But there is a lot more that they can do, especially if you can actually help them become better design leaders with better entrepreneurial skills. So those are the four thematic dimensions. Now let's just quickly go into each one of those things and spend just a minute. Next slide, please. Now, when we say design as a national infrastructure, what we mean is that the way we have innovated about digital infrastructure, the entire digital infrastructure that the government of India has envisaged and implemented is a story that is unparalleled in the world, right? So that kind of a story can be done with the design also as a national infrastructure, influencing the social equity, public services, governance, and so on. So that's what we mean by how design can become a strategic tool. Now, the next one is how do we bring in design inputs in government decision making, especially when it comes to infrastructure and the policy programs, especially when it comes to healthcare or public transportation, or even the townships that we're talking about. There is a lot of design that can go in from day one. So instead of bringing in design as an afterthought at a later point of time, but how do we actually embed it right from the day one, from the beginning, is what would help in building great infrastructure. Now, if you look at the developed nations, the only thing that sort of stands out is their infrastructure. And our infrastructure has been lacking or lagging for quite a long time. And that's an opportunity for the West to actually, come and, tout the, the poverty tourism, and, so the images that they actually portray is all about, what is not there rather than what is there. And infrastructure stands as a ground. And today, of course, we are making massive strides in infrastructure too. And whether it's airports or, national highways, they're all extremely good and on par with global standards. Now, the same kind of a thing across the board, across all infrastructure related programs would be really helpful. Next slide, please. And when we're talking about design as a cultural capital, so NIDs, there are a bunch of NIDs, and then there's a new NID that's going to come up, and they need to become the living laboratories of Indian design, Indian culture, heritage, and civilizational knowledge. There is enormous amount of traditional knowledge that is embedded in our culture, in our crafts, in our traditions, and everything. So how do we actually codify it, bring it up, not just document it as archives in a library, but how do you actually take it out and then use it in day-to-day design activities is something that needs to be explored. And there has to be a national discourse on what is Indian design identity, what should be the Indian design ethos. For example, sustainability has been a crucial tenet for Indians in general from time immemorial. Now it's the West that comes back and says sustainability is a standard, you need to follow it, and so on. But then see, we're losing out what we had as clear strengths to something that has been actually adopted by the West, right? So that is something that we need to focus on. Then next slide, please. Here, again, the impact of emerging technology. I think we have to build mission critical design research labs focusing on AI, healthcare, sustainability, and culture systems. Now, there are so many new roles are going to be emerging in light of AI automation. Now, it's not going to be anymore a furniture designer, or a product designer, or an architect, or any of these things. And there are many new roles are going to come. We need to do research into it, and then probably train our people, our students right now within the institute, so that they are ready for the future. And of course, Design Policy 2.0, the document that was created earlier, needs to be redrafted in line with the emerging technologies and the new realities, and even in the new geopolitical situation. So these are some of the things that we had talked about. And the final last one is the next slide, please. Yeah, and building future design leaders and entrepreneurs. So here, designers also need to be given some amount of understanding of economics and finance and manufacturing and market viability, so that we can help them become better design leaders and design entrepreneurs. And students should also be encouraged to tackle complex real-world problems rather than focusing on the next best toaster design, right? So they need to be aware of the kind of the problems that we face as a country, as a society, as a culture, and they need to start thinking about those aspects. And of course, embedding design awareness at the school level and professional education programs would also help in elevating the design thinking across the board. And finally, the desired impact. Next slide, please. The desired impact that we want to drive is design needs to move the needle from being an incremental innovation to transformative innovation in national development. And that's our submission. And we just need we need to do a lot more work, and probably we would meet offline and continue this discussion and bring back our thoughts and ideas into the policy making. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sridhar Modi. Let us now turn to Professor Suchi Sinha, Associate Professor, IIT Delhi, expert from Department of Higher Education. Dr. Sinha.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to moderate the session today morning. The session that I moderated was on girls' hostel in every district for STEM institutions. Several very inspiring women were part of the panel, and several interveners were also people who are experiencing educational institutions on a regular basis. So it was a very rich conversation. I must acknowledge that there was an overwhelming welcome of this initiative, of this announcement. There was an acknowledgement that accommodation and mobility barriers often constrain women aspirants from choosing and opting for STEM programs, and often they settle for courses which may be closer home just because of safety, affordability, and other reasons. The panel discussed several aspects of the girls' hostel in every district. There were helpful points which were made, both around strategic considerations as well as more operational considerations as this plan is implemented. I'll actually start with more operational issues and then finally close with some of the strategic considerations that were talked about. Operationally, there was an acknowledgement that a girls' hostel will need to understand and cater to girls with different demographic, dimensions. For example, women with caring responsibilities, women without caring responsibilities, and so forth. Some of the facilities which were considered and discussed were hygiene was considered to be a very important aspect in the girls' hostel, including discussions around provisions for sanitary napkins, their disposal, and other kind of hygiene considerations. There were discussions around safety and safety in terms of, say, alarm bells being very easily accessible. Somebody even said right near the bedside, in case there is an emergency, the women should feel the safety to be able to raise an alarm bell. There were considerations about and discussions around, of course, good food, hygienic food, nutritional, intake for the girls who are going to be staying in the hostels. There was discussion around Wi-Fi and ease of internet use, so that in case for late night work or any other time, that for global collaborations, if these women, the girls, want to collaborate, they should be able to have ease of access of the internet. Creche facilities were talked about, since again, like I said, there could be girls who may have caring responsibilities as they reside in these hostels. The next point that was discussed clearly was about the staff. The staff, preferably more female staff, and most importantly, sensitive staff. So staff sensitivity was talked about at length, where there was discussion that we must understand that in these girls' hostels, the languages used, the sensitivities about gender, all of that has to be kept in mind. The strategic points, and this is actually of great emphasis, and therefore I position it actually after the operational. A key concern, or rather a key consideration that was highlighted, is that even as we think about safe, affordable, accessible facilities, one should not envisage a girls' hostel tucked away in some corner just because we want to make it safe. It's very important that locationally these hostels are closer to where the institutes are and where so-called the research action or the curriculum action happens. This was emphasized time and again, because the idea was that these hostels should themselves become hot hubs where there's going to be exciting conversations, vibrancy, and a culture of empowerment, and not just tucked away in a different corner for a variety of reasons. Last, there was a conversation around, of course, there are two pathways possible. One is expansion of the current facilities that are already available and augmenting them, which may come with quicker output and a quicker setting up of the hostels. But age of the building needs to be thought about, access zones and how they can be protected and made accessible yet restrictive in terms of making sure the unwanted people are not into the hostel. That was considered. And finally, the green field was of course discussed much more, but both options were considered. In conclusion, a very, very welcome step, and many other operational points which the panelists felt that they'll be happy to contribute to. In case so wish, they can share more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Suchi Sinha. We now welcome remarks from Professor Annapurni Subramaniam, Director IIA, an expert from Ministry of Science and Technology. Professor Subramaniam.
Thank you. Good afternoon all. I am summarizing the breakout session titled Telescope Infrastructure Facilities. So this breakout session had about 5 panelists, and these panelists came from the various departments and academicians, researchers, and also industry. So in summary, the panelists felt that it's an extremely important step, and there was an overwhelming welcome to these projects from academia, industry, institutions, universities, etc. And we had several interveners who asked the questions, and these questions covered these projects. So these projects basically include setting up of 2 major facilities. One is a 2-meter National Large Solar Telescope, and the other is a 13.7-meter National Large Optical Telescope. The third is an upgradation of the existing Himalayan Chandra Telescope, and the fourth was the establishment of a planetarium, which is consisting of an LED dome. So the key discussion points included actually the timelines and monitoring process, as these projects have different timelines. And so what could be the parameters, indicators to monitor the progress? The other questions also included the major outcomes from these facilities, and such as the requirement of back-end instrumentation and collaboration to make cutting-edge instrumentation within the country. The telescope facilities are going to be established in high-altitude remote areas, so how to make sure that the logistics and maintenance issues are taken care. Key learnings from global practices and how these projects position India in the international scenario, etc., were also discussed. The discussion points also included synergy of these projects with the existing multi-wavelength projects such as LIGO India, MACE, etc., and also how to bring industry connect in specific points of developing key technology within the country, and particularly in terms of a segmented telescope, which we are going to do for the first time. And how do we strengthen science communication in the country, and how can we have a network of planetariums or science communication centers to actually communicate what is being done in these projects, also about the excitement of science and discoveries made in these particular facilities. It also discussed how to ramp up human resources capacity building in the country, as well as how do we empower and involve students and young researchers, etc., in the whole project. So the key challenges and risks identified were basically capacity building in the country, and development of a few key technologies, and also the knowledge retention and knowledge basically transfer, because these projects span over a very long timeline, and the required policy and regulation with respect to industry academia connect, and the development of centers, and new ideas and new R&D, basically technology developments. So the key recommendations which came were the there are many institutions in the country which have started astronomy and astrophysics, and the aspirations in space science is looking extremely, very, very good. So it is important to involve institutions across the country and also equitable access to people across the country. In terms of technology, one emerging point which came from the industry is that their involvement in critical science projects, technologically challenging science projects, basically are bringing in the ultra high precision mechanisms within the industry. And they also express that such participation is helping them to get these technology used in areas which actually will not be accessible to them. So this is a very, very important point. So the important points like some of the critical technologies like ion beam polishing or the alignment and phasing systems of the segmented telescopes require new development, and it is important to be developed in the country and with industry and academia collaboration. And also important to bring synergies within the R&D and existing telescopes within the country. It also is recommended that it is important to use AI and digital twins, because these systems are remote, and digital twins really help in optimization of the performance as well as finding out any maintenance issues, etc. So it is important to build digital twins of various subsystems early on and also use them to improve the system as well as to get good maintenance. The capacity building in terms of AI and computing facilities are important. It is also important to have a good mechanism to have a knowledge capture and knowledge transfer. And this is particularly important in terms of these projects are highly technically and challenging projects which run across long years. So this is a very unique example of building such capacity within the country. And in terms of science communication, it is important to communicate science to the public and also pass on the excitement and the discoveries which are made over here, and also to show what kind of technology is developed and how one gets access to these kind of laboratories and things like that. And for that, a good connect between scientific institutions and planetaria are important, and this also helps to communicate science effectively and also interact with researchers themselves and also people who are directly involved with these kind of projects. So these were the entire summary, and thank you for the thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Professor Annapurni Subramaniam, thank you, ma'am. We now turn to remarks by Mrs. Manmeet K. Nanda, Additional Secretary, DPWD, expert from Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. Ma'am, over to you.
Civil society organizations, youth volunteers who actually have their boots on the ground come and deliberate on manners. Am I audible, sir?
You are audible, ma'am. Yes, we can hear you.
So we had representatives from the government, from the private sector, corporate, civil society organizations, youth volunteers who have actual boots on ground, deliberate on how to strengthen the ecosystem for employment-linked skilling of Divyangjans. The panelists also shared best practices, innovative models, and policy suggestions. The deliberations were organized around 5 thematic pillars, the 5 Ps as we would like to summarize, each capturing a distinct dimension of challenge and opportunity. Passion. The webinar opened with the strong affirmation that there needs to be a broad consensus that technical skilling itself is not sufficient. What is needed is an inclusive workplace culture, leadership commitment from employers, staff sensitization as essential prerequisites before training and hiring PWDs. Therefore, passion, like the group agreed, must translate from intent into a sustained institutional action. The second P, perseverance. The participants were very candid and agreed that what needs to be addressed foremost is structural barriers. The need for having customized training challenges that continue to be tailored to specific disability types, age groups, because one generic does not fit all. There are weak linkages between skill training programs and actual employment outcomes, and training should be touching into those aspects so that they get converted into actual jobs. And the persistent underrepresentation of PWDs in STEM education and emerging technology sectors. The third P are possibilities. The discussion highlighted a range of expanding opportunities for the Divyangjan Kaushal Yojana that can strategically leverage the growing demand for talent in AI, semiconductor manufacturing, gig economy platforms, the rise of online and blended learning models, so that we can reach to the remotest PWD, deeper industry partnership for inclusive hiring, and an increased adoption of assistive technology. The fourth P is the potential, the need to strengthen the existing ecosystem by aligning the skill programs with actual market demand with sector-specific job roles, expanding digital literacy initiatives, promoting training of trainers program with cross-disability expertise, developing incubation support, financial inclusion mechanisms, and procurement preferences for PWD entrepreneurs. The fifth P, pilot. The webinar concluded with a set of concrete priority actions for early implementation, a need for a national awareness campaign focused on the untapped employment opportunities of the PWDs, the strengthened industry-linked skilling programs for on-the-job training components, expand accessible training infrastructure, scale up assistive technology support, introduce sector-focused skilling initiatives, increase rural outreach and participation of PWDs in all skilling development programs, encourage online blended training models. In conclusion, the Divyangjan Kaushal Yojana post-budget webinar underscored a shared national resolve among the government and the stakeholders to transform disability-inclusive skilling from intent to impact. Across these 5 pillars of passion, perseverance, possibilities, potential, and pilot, stakeholders converged on a clear imperative. Skilling must be demand-driven, accessible, and employment-linked. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Manmeet Nanda. And we thank all the moderators for their leadership and insights in the webinar today. And we now turn to honorable ministers for their remarks and guidance. May I first request Dr. Jitendra Singh, Honorable Minister of Science and Technology, to share his thoughts with us.
Good evening. You may recall that one of the highlights of the Honorable Prime Minister's 76th Independence Day speech was the acknowledgement of the profound knowledge of ancient Indians, or the traditional Indian knowledge. India has a dominant presence in astronomy and astrophysics, as well as astrophysics research, and has contributed immensely in this field. We have demonstrated our capabilities through indigenous space missions like AstroSat, like Aditya L1, like ExpoSat. India has participated in major international projects like the Facility for Anti-Proton and Ion Research, or FAIR, 30-meter telescope, TMT, square kilometer array, SKA, LIGO India, etc., etc. The expertise and the experience which our scientists have developed through these global consortia projects helped us reshape our S&T landscape. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, this government has created several sophisticated research infrastructure facilities across the country, and the coming decades in astronomy and astrophysics will be driven by transformative discoveries enabled by large aperture telescopes and advanced instrumentation. India had established a 2-meter Himalayan Chandra telescope, the HCT, established in the year 2000 at Henley, Ladakh, which facilitates more than 250 researchers and is on the number of these researchers is on the increase. Cosmos 1 in Mysuru in Karnataka is another pioneering state-of-the-art LED dome planetarium, which is almost ready for operation. As you are aware, the Union Minister for Finance in the budget speech in 2026-27 has announced to set up 2 more telescope facilities, namely the National Large Scale Telescope and the National Large Optical Infrared Telescope, as well at the same time upgradation of the Himalayan Chandra telescope that I just now referred, and also developing of a new Cosmos 2 planetarium. In today's seminar, the experts in the fields of astrophysics and astronomy from different research and academic institutions, as well as from industry, we have been able to discuss different aspects of the proposals that include technology challenges, that include parameters of the indicators to monitor the progress, to monitor the strategies for human resource development, as well as also for capacity building, and also the plans to sustain the infrastructure and its utilization for larger public good. I believe the Indian industry, including the MSMEs, will be engaged across the value chain in precision up to mechanical components, telescope structures, mirror support systems, vacuum and cryogenic hardware, motion control, as well as power electronics, as also coatings, detractors, and observatory software, etc., etc. I also learned that the Indian Space Research Organization, named ISRO, is installing an observing facility at Henley as a part of its initiative to set up a network of facilities under the project NETRA. And NETRA stands for Network for Space Object Tracking and Analysis. And NETRA is aimed to detect and track space debris, which is a growing hazard now, as well as other hazards which could pose threats to India's satellites in the orbit. The proposed facilities will work in tandem so that the synchronization between the facilities maximizes the outcomes that we receive. These new and upgraded facilities may bridge the gap and may also help the researchers to gain access to telescopes at par with that of the other nations. And therefore, I'm sure the following recommendations from this webinar will make the implementation more effective and also guide the researchers to utilize the facilities for taking up high-end and path-breaking research in this field. And the recommendations are as follows. A, involve all the major institutions with astronomy in the making of the telescope and the back-end instruments. The second recommendation I make is the B1, the key technologies that need to be done in the country to be done with academia, industry, partnership. As you know, this government has been very supportive about a larger synergy between industry, research, academia, and industry. C, to establish a strong connect between scientific institutions and planetaria to communicate science effectively to the public, because unless we don't reach these shareholders, our purpose would be defeated if we are not able to bring in the ultimate aim or achieve the ultimate aim of bringing in ease of living in the life of a common man for whom all this SNT research is meant. D, selection of the partner for building large telescope to be based on QCBS model and integration. And the D and the E recommendation would be the integration of AI ecosystem and developing digital twins, which are essential for optimal performance and maintenance of infrastructure. And lastly, the recommendation would be the knowledge capture and knowledge retention, which are important in technologically challenging and long duration projects. And ultimately, I believe an extended collaboration among all the stakeholders, among all the collaborators across the lines is what is going to decide the ultimate outcomes of all these endeavors. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Jitendra Singh. May we now request Sri Rao Inderjeet Singh, Honorable Minister of State for Planning, to deliver his remarks.
Honorable Ministers, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to the close of today's discussion, the deliberations have highlighted several important themes on strengthening the budget announcement on high-powered education to employment to enterprise standing committee and enhancing the role of the services sector in India's growth journey. One of the key points that has emerged from the discussion is the need to significantly improve the quality of higher education to drive job opportunities and position India as a global services hub. While the services sector continues to contribute majorly to economic growth, contributing over 50% of GVA, nearly 1/3 of employment, and a significant share of exports, there remains a persistent gap between education and workforce readiness. Addressing this will require stronger alignment between academia and industry, including greater industry participation in curriculum design, board of study, and academic councils and training systems. Participants also highlighted the importance of expanding structured internships and work-integrated learning programs so that students gain meaningful industry exposure and practical skills during their academic journey. Another important theme of the discussion was the growing role of artificial intelligence and digital public infrastructure in shaping the future of services and employment. AI adoption has the potential to significantly enhance productivity, innovation, and global competitiveness. However, enabling this transition will require appropriate infrastructure, innovation sandboxes, and supportive ecosystems so that businesses, particularly MSMEs, can effectively adopt these technologies. The panels also emphasized the need to strengthen research and innovation ecosystems, including the establishment of centers of excellence in R&D with participation from the private sector. In addition, the importance of building flexible and future-ready learning systems, upskilling teachers at scale, particularly in emerging areas such as AI, machine learning, and deep technologies, was emphasized. The discussion also highlighted the importance of collaboration between policymakers, industry, and academia to bridge skill gaps and accelerate innovation. Strengthening of center-state coordination and promoting services clusters and innovation hubs in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities can further expand employment opportunities and support regional economic growth. At the same time, stakeholders highlighted the need for credible and flexible regulatory institutions that can improve education quality, attract talent, and respond to evolving industry needs. Finally, the importance of clear and measurable indicators was emphasized to ensure accountability and to track progress. The insights shared during today's webinar provide valuable inputs for shaping policy directions, particularly in the context of the said committee. With that, I would like to thank all the distinguished panelists and participants for their valuable contributions to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Rao Inderjit Singh Ji. We now request Shri Ashwani Vaishnav, Honorable Minister for Information and Broadcasting, to share his thoughts with us.
नमस्कार। पहले तो मैं सबको धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा। बहुत ही बड़ी संख्या में करीब 1000 से अधिक पार्टिसिपेंट्स आज के पूरे वेबिनार में आए और बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण सुझाव आए। ऐसे सुझाव आए जिन सुझावों का डायरेक्टली उपयोग किया जा सकता है और जिनको पॉलिसी में इंटीग्रेट किया जा सकता है, ऐसे कई सुझाव आए। तो इसके लिए मैं सभी पैनलिस्ट को, सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को, सबको मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा। आपके सुझावों से ही आगे देश की पॉलिसी का निर्माण होगा और देश के विकसित भारत के रास्ते में आपके सुझाव बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। मैं कुल मिला के 3 विषय यहाँ पे आपके सामने रखना चाहूँगा। पहला विषय है क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी। एक ऐसा सेक्टर बन के उभरा है जो कि पिछले 7-8 वर्षों में और विशेषकर डिजिटल इंडिया की जो पहुंच गांव-गांव में हुई है, ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में हुई है, उसका जो इम्पैक्ट हुआ है, उससे पूरी नई इकोनॉमी, क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी बन के उभरी है। इस क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी का फायदा कई तरह से हुआ है। सबसे बड़ा जो बेनिफिट हुआ है वो ये हुआ है कि हमारी संस्कृति, हमारा खान पान, हमारा लोकल जितना भी हमारी बहुत ही हाइपर लोकल चीजें हैं, उनको हम दुनिया के सामने पहुंचा पा रहे हैं। किसी भी छोटे से गांव में बिहार के लिट्टी चोखा से लेके राजस्थान के गट्टा करी को हर चीज को दुनिया के सामने पहुंचाने का एक मौका मिला है। उड़ीसा के छेना पोड़ा से लेके तमिलनाडु के एक स्पेशल, केरल के आड़ा पायसम को, सभी को दुनिया तक पहुंचाने का एक बहुत अच्छा मौका मिला है। और ये बहुत ही डेमोक्रेटिक व्यवस्था है क्योंकि इसमें कोई भी व्यक्ति जो भी चाहे अपनी बात को कहना, वो कहने की क्षमता रखता है। एक बहुत बड़ा प्लेटफॉर्म सबको मिला। इसके कई पॉजिटिव्स आए समाज में और कुछ नेगेटिव्स भी है, कुछ हार्म्स भी हैं, लेकिन ये क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी अपने आप में एक बड़ी इकोनॉमी बन के निकली। दूसरा विषय मैं रखना चाहूँगा, आज का जो एंटरटेनमेंट और मीडिया की दुनिया है, इस दुनिया में टेक्नोलॉजी का जो उपयोग है, ये एक प्राइमरी रोल बनता जा रहा है। आज से 20 साल पहले अगर देखें तो मीडिया एंटरटेनमेंट में टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग होता था एज अ एडिशनल चीज, कोई ऐड करो उसमें 30-40% होता था। आज 70-80% टेक्नोलॉजी है, 30-40% बाकी सब चीजें। इसमें हमारे देश के नौजवान विशेषकर और आने वाले युवक युवतियां वो कैसे लीड ले, इस चीज के बारे में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने बहुत एक अच्छा विजन रखा। उस विजन को कन्वर्ट किया वेव्स के प्लेटफॉर्म से। वेव्स प्लेटफॉर्म एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म बना जिसमें हमने मीडिया एंटरटेनमेंट की, जिसको आजकल कॉर्पोरेट की दुनिया में एवीजीसी सेक्टर बोलते हैं, एवीजीसी एक्सआर सेक्टर बोलते हैं, इसको एक टेक्नोलॉजी का प्लेटफॉर्म दिया और बहुत सारे पॉलिसी मेकर्स, इंडस्ट्री लीडर्स, इन सबको एक मंच पे लाके कैसे इस सेक्टर को आगे ले जाना है, इस पे एक अच्छा मेथड बन गया है और ये प्लेटफॉर्म आज अच्छा दुनिया भर में रिकॉग्नाइज्ड प्लेटफॉर्म बन गया है। वेव्स के समिट के बाद में फॉलो अप एक्शन जितना हुआ, इन दैट फॉलो अप एक्शन we have been able to showcase our creators works in the entire world और अब तक करीब 1000 करोड़ से अधिक बिजनेस मिल चुका है हमारे क्रिएटर्स को। आप इमेजिन कीजिए इस वेव्स के प्लेटफॉर्म के बिना हमारे क्रिएटर्स को दुनिया के मार्केट में कोई पहुंच नहीं होती थी। इस वेव्स के प्लेटफॉर्म और इसके सब्सिक्वेंट एक्शंस के कारण, जिसमें वेव्स बाजार है, वेव्स एक्स है, वेव्स इंक्यूबेटर है, वेव्स एक्सेलरेटर है, वेव्स फंडिंग का है, कई सारी चीजें हैं, और वेव्स का अपना एक OTT भी है। तो इन सब के माध्यम से आज अपने देश के क्रिएटर्स को एक बहुत बड़ा ग्लोबल मार्केट मिलने लगा है। टोक्यो में, ओसाका में, मेलबर्न में, ओंटारियो में, टोरंटो में, हाल ही में जर्मनी में, यूके में, सब जगह हमारे क्रिएटर्स को अपनी प्रोडक्ट्स को, अपने कॉन्सेप्ट्स को, अपने प्रोडक्शन को, अपने कंटेंट को दिखाने का मौका मिला और उससे बहुत अच्छे कॉमर्शियल बेनिफिट्स हुए। 1000 करोड़ से ज़्यादा का बेनिफिट हमारे क्रिएटर्स को मिला। तीसरा विषय मैं सबके सामने रखना चाहूँगा वो है हम इसको इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज कैसे करें। वेव समिट अपनी जगह आया, ये हर 2 साल में एक बार होगा, जिससे कि पॉलिसी मेकर्स, इंडस्ट्री सब जुड़ेंगे। अब इसको नेक्स्ट लेवल पे ले जाना है। तो नेक्स्ट लेवल पे ले जाने के लिए एक कल्पना की गई, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ क्रिएटिव टेक्नोलॉजीज। जैसे IIT सिस्टम है, IIM सिस्टम है, IIIT सिस्टम है, एम्स के सिस्टम है, जिसमें आइसर के सिस्टम्स हैं, जो ये ऐसे इंस्टीट्यूशनल चेन्स हैं जो कि हमारे देश के युवाओं को एक बहुत अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म देती है, जहाँ से स्टूडेंट्स अच्छा पढ़ सके और एकदम रेलेवेंट फील्ड में वो अपने को एक्सपर्ट बना के मार्केट में, दुनिया में अपनी पहचान बना सके। इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ क्रिएटिव टेक्नोलॉजीज, इसको पूरी तरह से इंडस्ट्री ओरिएंटेड रखा गया। राइट फ्रॉम डे वन, each and everything in this institute was decided by the industry, for the industry and of the industry। पूरी तरह से कोई इसमें theoretical चीज नहीं रखी गई, 100% प्रैक्टिकल इंडस्ट्री के हिसाब से रखा गया। इसका पहला कैंपस मुंबई में बन रहा है, फिल्म सिटी में महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट ने अच्छी एक लैंड का पार्सल दिया है, 18 एकड़ के आसपास का वो पार्सल है, उसमें कंस्ट्रक्शन अभी बहुत जल्दी शुरू होगा। लेकिन जो टेम्परेरी कैंपस इसका बना, नेशनल फिल्म डेवलपमेंट कॉर्पोरेशन के 2-3 फ्लोर्स को खाली करके वहाँ पे बनाया गया। मैं आपके सामने ये रखना चाहता हूँ कि इस टेम्परेरी कैंपस में जो फैसिलिटीज बनी, विशेषकर जो एब्सोल्युटली हाईटेक मॉडर्न लेबोरेटरीज, और एक्चुअली लैब क्या है, वहाँ पे कंटेंट ही क्रिएट होता है, those labs are today rated among the best in the world। Even those labs which have been created in the temporary campus of first IICT, they are rated among the best in the world, better than all labs in Europe, better than all labs in Asia, and comparable to some of the best in Hollywood। So that kind of potential is there in our country। अगर हम आपके आज जो सुझाव आए, उन सुझावों में भी ये बात आई, अगर हम इंडस्ट्री ओरिएंटेशन अपने इंस्टीट्यूट्स का कर सकें तो इसमें हम अपने स्टूडेंट्स के लिए बहुत अच्छी रेलेवेंट एजुकेशन दे सकते हैं, जो कि टेक्स्ट बुक से बाहर, टेक्स्ट बुक पढ़ना, अपनी एक थ्योरेटिकल बेस बनाना जरूरी है, लेकिन उस थ्योरेटिकल बेस के ऊपर कैसे हम प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज ला सकें, वो IICT हुआ, गतिशक्ति विश्वविद्यालय हुआ, सेमीकंडक्टर का कोर्सेज हुआ, जिसमें 315 यूनिवर्सिटीज में आज स्टूडेंट्स सेमीकंडक्टर की प्रैक्टिकल ट्रेनिंग ले रहे हैं। They are designing chips, they are actually manufacturing chips, and their products are validated in the real world। टेलीकॉम में 100 यूनिवर्सिटीज में टेलीकॉम की लैब्स बनी, जिसमें एक्चुअल 5G लगा और वो 5G एक्चुअल में स्टूडेंट्स उसको यूज कर रहे हैं और उसमें यूज केसेस नए बना रहे हैं, उसमें हर तरह के एक्सपेरिमेंट्स एक्चुअल रियल लाइफ एनवायरनमेंट में करते हैं। तो ये जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का विजन है, इंडस्ट्री ओरिएंटेशन एजुकेशन में लाना, और ये न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी का भी बहुत मुख्य एक अंग है। माननीय शिक्षा मंत्री जी हमारे साथ हैं आज, तो इस पूरे कॉन्सेप्ट के हमारे सामने आज कई एग्जांपल्स आ गए। अब इसको नेक्स्ट लेवल पे ले जाने का इस बजट में माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी ने घोषणा की 15,000 क्रिएटर लैब्स बनाने का, 15,000 क्रिएटर लैब। ये हमारे क्रिएट इन इंडिया मिशन का हिस्सा है, जिसका अभी कंप्लीट प्रपोजल चल रहा है, बन रहा है उसका। इस प्रपोजल में क्रिएट इन इंडिया मिशन में क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी को एक नया प्लेटफॉर्म दिया जाएगा जिससे 1 करोड़ से अधिक क्रिएटर्स बेनिफिटेड होंगे। उनको टूल्स मिलेंगे, नए तरह की ट्रेनिंग मिलेगी और प्रयास ये रहेगा कि देश के हर पंचायत में कम से कम कुछ क्रिएटर्स बने ऐसे जिनको हम ट्रेन कर पाए, जिनको हम नई टेक्नोलॉजी दे पाए और जिनको हम एक तरीके से एक नया रोजगार का भी, इनकम का भी एक नया साधन दे पाए। ये सब प्रयास चल रहे हैं। साथ ही साथ अभी आपने देखा होगा कि दूरदर्शन में एक क्रिएटर्स कॉर्नर बना है जिसमें क्रिएटर्स अपने कंटेंट को दे सकते हैं और उस कंटेंट को दूरदर्शन एज अ प्लेटफॉर्म देता है और उस प्लेटफॉर्म को लेकर उस प्लेटफॉर्म का यूज करके क्रिएटर्स फाइंड न्यू एवेन्यूज फॉर पब्लिशिंग देयर कंटेंट एंड टेकिंग इट टू द वर्ल्ड। तो कई ऐसे नए इनिशिएटिव्स अभी चल रहे हैं। मैं आप सबको बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा कि आपने अपने बहुमूल्य सुझाव दिए और बहुत ही अच्छे सुझाव आए, सारे सुझाव नोट किए गए। अभी क्रिएट इन इंडिया मिशन फाइनल जब होता है उसमें आपके सुझावों का पूरी तरह से उपयोग किया जाएगा और साथ ही साथ IICT को जब आगे बढ़ाते हैं, नए लेवल पे लेके जाते हैं और प्रसार भारती के रिफॉर्म्स में भी आपके सुझावों का पूरी तरह से उपयोग किया जाएगा। बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।
श्री अश्विनी वैष्णव, आपके संबोधन के लिए धन्यवाद। We now request Dr. Virendra Kumar, Honorable Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment, to please address the gathering.
नमस्कार, माननीय मेरे साथी मंत्रीगण और विभिन्न क्षेत्रों से आए हुए हमारे विशेषज्ञगण, लाभार्थी और आज मैं सुबह से जब माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के द्वारा वेबिनार का शुभारंभ किया गया तब मार्गदर्शन हम सबको प्राप्त के बाद फिर अलग अलग मंत्रालय के तो स्टेक होल्डर्स के विशेषज्ञों के जो विचार सुनने को मिले उसमें कई बहुत अच्छे सुझाव आए। उसमें बहुत अच्छे जो पहल की गई उनके द्वारा उन पहलों के बारे में भी जानकारी रखी गई। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने हमेशा इस बात पर जोर दिया है कि किसी भी देश के वास्तविक विकास का मापदंड यह है कि वहां समाज के सबसे कमजोर वर्गों को कितने प्रभावी ढंग से सशक्त बनाया जाता है। और हमारा जो दिव्यांगजन कौशल योजना, इस बार के बजट में जो दिव्यांगजन कौशल योजना का अनाउंस हुआ उसमें सरकार के प्रयासों के साथ जब मैंने देखा कि जब कम्युनिटी की भागीदारी जुड़ जाती है, समाज की जब भागीदारी जुड़ जाती है तो वो कदम कई गुना आगे बढ़ जाते हैं। और इस वेबिनार के माध्यम से जब मैं सुन रहा था कि जब हरिता जी ने अपनी बात रखी कि दिव्यांगजन, उन्होंने कहा कि अभी भी शिक्षा, प्रशिक्षण और रोजगार के अवसरों तक पहुंच में कई प्रकार की बाधाओं का सामना कर रहे हैं। उन्होंने कौशल विकास कार्यक्रमों और रोजगार के अवसरों के बीच में कमजोर जुड़ाव पर भी चिंता व्यक्त की और यह भी उल्लेख किया कि विभिन्न क्षेत्रों और सेक्टरों में अवसर समान रूप से उपलब्ध नहीं है। वहीं जब हमारी अनीना आलम जी ने मिट्टी कैफे की बात की तो मिट्टी कैफे की जब उनके बात प्रारंभ की गई तो उन्होंने कहा कि सपनों के साथ इसको शुरू किया था, अकेले उन्होंने प्रारंभ किया, एक छोटे से स्टाल से प्रारंभ किया और उनके द्वारा की गई वो पहल आज राष्ट्रपति भवन, एयरपोर्टों पर, हमारे एयरपोर्ट के स्थानों पर, अनेक स्थानों पर बहुत बड़ी संख्या में उस योजना के माध्यम से, मिट्टी कैफे के माध्यम से दिव्यांगजनों को आर्थिक और सामाजिक रूप से सशक्त बनाने की दिशा में एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण कदम साबित हुआ और इसी कारण से उनको राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर उनको सम्मानित भी किया गया। और इससे हमको उन्होंने एक बात कही, ये केवल एक व्यक्ति के द्वारा प्रारंभ किया गया अभियान नहीं है बल्कि ये कम्युनिटी की भागीदारी है। और कम्युनिटी की भागीदारी जब अच्छी भावना के साथ में जब इस तरह के प्रयासों में जुड़ जाती है, सरकार और समाज जब एक साथ आगे बढ़ जाते हैं तो उसके सार्थक परिणाम बहुत बड़ी मात्रा में सामने आते हैं। और मिट्टी कैफे यह संदेश देता है कि दिव्यांगता कमजोरी नहीं है बल्कि क्षमता का एक अलग स्वरूप है, जहां दिव्यांगजनों को अगर अवसर उपलब्ध कराए जाते हैं, उनको अपनी क्षमताओं का प्रदर्शन करने का उचित प्लेटफॉर्म मिलता है तो वो अपनी क्षमताओं का प्रदर्शन करके न केवल अपने आप को सशक्त बनाते हैं बल्कि समाज को सशक्त बनाते हुए जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का सोच है कि सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास और देश को आत्मनिर्भर बनाने में सभी के सामूहिक प्रयास। जब सभी के सामूहिक प्रयासों की बात आती है तो उसमें हमारे दिव्यांगजनों के भी सशक्तिकरण की बात आती है। बीना सेनाई जी ने जो बात कही कि दिव्यांग युवाओं के लिए कौशल प्रशिक्षण केंद्रों को आजीविका हब के रूप में विकसित करने की भूमिका को रेखांकित किया, यूथ फॉर जॉब्स, और इसमें तकनीकी आधारित प्रशिक्षण के महत्व पर उनके द्वारा जोर दिया गया, और ये बताते हुए कि दिव्यांग युवा उभरती तकनीकों से जुड़ने पर बेहतर प्रदर्शन करते हैं, क्योंकि वो टेक्नोलॉजी को, हमारा जो युवा होता है और जो हमारे दिव्यांगजन होते हैं वो टेक्नोलॉजी को बहुत बेहतर तरीके से समझते हैं। समग्र प्रशिक्षण केंद्र विकसित करने का भी प्रस्ताव रखा गया और उसमें सुलभ अवसंरचनाएं, सहायक तकनीकों से सुसज्जित कक्षाएं, ऐसी उन्होंने जो महत्वपूर्ण बातें कही गई जिसमें डिजिटल साक्षरता, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, उपकरणों का परिचय, मॉक इंटरव्यू, कार्यस्थल के लिए तैयारी, ऐसी अनेक महत्वपूर्ण बातें उनके द्वारा रखी गई। वहीं विनीत सरायवाला जी ने उन्होंने बताया कि भारत की पहली सेमीकंडक्टर निर्माण पहलों में दिव्यांगजन तकनीकी सहयोग के रूप में भी योगदान दे चुके हैं। यानी दिव्यांगजनों को जब अवसर मिलता है तो वो हर स्थान पर अपनी क्षमता का प्रदर्शन करने में कहीं पीछे नहीं रहते हैं। उन्होंने इस बात पर भी जोर दिया कि दिव्यांगजन तकनीकी और स्टीम क्षेत्रों में पूरी तरह से सक्षम है। वहीं हमारे जब रविंद्र सिंह जी ने अपनी बात रखी तो रविंद्र सिंह जी ने एक बात महत्वपूर्ण से रखी गई थी, उनके द्वारा कहा गया था कि सरकार जो है तो सरकार दिव्यांगजनों के कल्याण के लिए, उनके वेलफेयर के लिए, उनके स्किल डेवलपमेंट के लिए नीतियां बनाती, योजना बनाती है, लेकिन इंडस्ट्रियां उनके क्रियान्वयन में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाती हैं, उद्योग जगत उसमें बहुत महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाते हैं। यही बात आती है जो हमारे विशेषज्ञों के द्वारा बात रखी गई कि उनके जीवन के अनुभव, जिस क्षेत्र में वो काम कर रहे हैं उस कार्य के माध्यम से न केवल अपने व्यवसाय को, उसको आधार को आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं, बल्कि अपनी सामुदायिक भागीदारी को भी जोड़ने में वो कहीं पीछे नहीं है। आराधना लाल जी ने जो लेमन ट्री होटल से हैं, उन्होंने जब अपनी बात रखी तो उन्होंने बहुत इस वेबिनार के माध्यम से दिव्यांगजनों के सशक्तिकरण के लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बातें उनके द्वारा रखी गई, और उन्होंने बताया कि उनका जो संगठन है लगभग 2 दशकों से जो कार्यस्थल समावेशन के प्रति प्रतिबद्धता को रेखांकित कर रहा है, और उनके कई दिव्यांग कर्मचारी उनके कई विभागों में काम कर रहे हैं, जहां मानव संसाधन, फ्रंट डेस्क संचालन, हाउसकीपिंग, वित्त विभाग, आईटी, ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण उसमें जो है काउंटर पर बिल भी जो है ना वो काटने का काम उनके द्वारा किया जा रहा है। ये बताते हैं कि हमारे आज के जो हमारे स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, हमारे विशेषज्ञ हैं, अलग अलग क्षेत्रों में काम करने वाले जो हमारे प्रतिभागी हैं, आज की इसके वेबिनार के माध्यम से उनके द्वारा जो सुझाव प्राप्त हुए उनमें जो महत्वपूर्ण थे कि राष्ट्रीय जागरूकता अभियान और उसमें दिव्यांगजनों के लिए रोजगार और कौशल के अवसरों के बारे में जागरूकता बढ़ाए जाने के लिए अभियान चलाने की उनके द्वारा बात कही गई। तो डिजिटल साक्षरता और यूडीआईडी कार्ड के विस्तार के लिए कहा गया, ऑनलाइन एवं ब्लेंडेड लर्निंग के लिए उसके लिए कि ऑनलाइन और हाइब्रिड प्रशिक्षण मॉडल को बढ़ावा दिया जाए। क्रॉस डिसेबिलिटी अर्ली इंटरवेंशन ट्रेनिंग क्षमता है, उस ट्रेनर क्षमता को उसमें कौशल प्रशिक्षण पाठ्यक्रम में सुगम्यता सुनिश्चित की जाए। फिर क्षेत्र विशिष्ट कौशल विकास पर भी, अब क्षेत्र विशिष्ट हमारे बहुत सारे विशेषज्ञों ने कहा कि ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में जो हमारे दिव्यांगजन होते हैं उनको अलग तरह का स्किल ट्रेनिंग देने की आवश्यकता है। ऐसी शहरी क्षेत्रों के जो हमारे दिव्यांगजन होते हैं उनको अलग तरह का स्किल देने की आवश्यकता है। दोनों की अपनी अपनी पृष्ठभूमि अलग होती है और इस कारण से उनको जो है ना अलग अलग तरह का प्रशिक्षण दे करके और वो आसानी से उस काम को कर सकेंगे, क्योंकि जो शहर का हमारा दिव्यांगजन है वो थोड़ा सा पढ़ा लिखा होगा, जो हमारा ग्रामीण क्षेत्र का दिव्यांगजन होता है वो गरीब परिवारों की पृष्ठभूमि से आता है और इतना शिक्षा के प्रति जागरूकता नहीं होने के कारण, लेकिन उसको डिजिटल से जोड़े जाने का काम, उसको स्किल से जोड़े जाने का काम बड़ी आसानी से किया जा सकता है। कई हमारे विशेषज्ञों ने कहा कि दिव्यांगजनों के लिए स्टीम और शिक्षा, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, सेमीकंडक्टर जैसे क्षेत्रों में पहुंच बढ़ाई जाए। फिर दिव्यांगजन उद्यमता, जो इकोनॉमिक, जो हमारा परिस्थिति तंत्र है, इनको इक्यूबेशन वित्त, मेंटरशिप, खरीद उपकरण के माध्यम से समर्थन प्रदान किया जाए। उद्योग क्षेत्रों में जिस तरह की आवश्यकता है, श्रम आधारित बाजार उन्मुखी जो आवश्यकता है, उन आवश्यकताओं के अनुरूप दिव्यांगजनों को प्रशिक्षण देकर उद्योग क्षेत्र में बड़ी मात्रा में हमारे दिव्यांगजनों के लिए जीवन में आगे बढ़ने के उनको अवसर उपलब्ध कराए जा सकते हैं। और यही बात माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के द्वारा कही जाती है। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं कि सबका साथ सबका विकास, तो सबका साथ सबका विकास में चाहे वो हमारे गांव में रहने वाला हमारा दिव्यांगजन हो, चाहे वो हमारा शहर में रहने वाला दिव्यांगजन हो, चाहे वो हमारे कस्बे में रहने वाला दिव्यांगजन हो, सबके लिए आज की चर्चा में महत्वपूर्ण से उभर के आया कि दिव्यांगजनों का सशक्तिकरण सामूहिक प्रयास के लिए आवश्यकता है। केवल सरकार के अकेले प्रयासों से ये काम नहीं हो सकता है। इस काम में सरकारी प्रयासों के साथ साथ विभिन्न मंत्रालयों का भी इसमें सहयोग चाहिए। राज्य सरकार और केंद्र शासित जो प्रदेश हैं, केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों का भी, फिर हमारे नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट और हमारे जो क्षेत्रीय संस्थान हैं उनका भी, एनजीओ का, नागरिक समाज संगठन और उद्योग जगत के जो नेता हैं, सामाजिक उद्यम है, उनके साथ ही साथ माय भारत के संस्थक और युवा प्रतिभागी, इन सबके जो विचार और सुझाव इस पहल को और अधिक सशक्त बनाने में तथा देश में दिव्यांगजन समावेशी कौशल विकास के भविष्य को आकार देने में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाएंगे। हमारा सामूहिक उद्देश्य बिल्कुल स्पष्ट होना चाहिए कि प्रत्येक दिव्यांग युवा को कौशल रोजगार के अवसर और अपने पूर्ण सामर्थ्य को साकार करने के लिए आवश्यक समर्थन प्राप्त हो। कौशल विकास, आर्थिक भागीदारी और श्रम की गरिमा को बढ़ावा देकर हम ऐसे समाज की ओर अग्रसर हो रहे हैं जहां दिव्यांगजनों को उनकी सीमाओं के लिए नहीं बल्कि उनकी क्षमताओं और राष्ट्र निर्माण में उनके योगदान के लिए पहचाना जाएगा। आइए हम सब मिलकर एक समावेशी, कुशल और सशक्त भारत के निर्माण के लिए आज का यह जो वेबिनार है, इस वेबिनार के माध्यम से जो विचार आए हैं, जो सुझाव आए हैं, निश्चित रूप से आने वाले समय में उसके लिए सभी का साथ लेते हुए इन सुझावों के माध्यम से मंत्रालय अपनी चलाई जाने वाली योजनाओं में उनमें से महत्वपूर्ण विचारों का, सुझावों का समावेश करते हुए अपने काम को और अधिक प्रभावी ढंग से करने का संकल्प इस वेबिनार के माध्यम से हम लेंगे। ऐसे ही और मुझे अपेक्षा है कि आप सबका भी इस काम में, दिव्यांगजनों के सशक्तिकरण में, उनके आर्थिक, सामाजिक, शैक्षणिक विकास में आपका भी आने वाले समय में हम सभी को ऐसा ही सामूहिक रूप से सहयोग मिले।
Dr. Virendra Kumar, आपका आभार. We now invite Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister of Commerce, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you very much. Grateful to Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji for having given me this opportunity to join the post-budget webinar today. My colleagues, Dr. Virendra Kumar ji, Ashwini Vaishnav ji, Rao Inderjeet Singh ji, Jitendra Singh ji, all the secretaries who have joined the webinar, industry experts, captains of business, and to all participants, my warm greetings. India is entering a decisive decade of development. Our demographic dividend, the young aspirational Indian with an average age of 28.5 years, and the technological strength that 2.3 million STEM graduates bring to the table every year are today coming together to act as a force multiplier and grow the Indian economy, take the Indian growth story to the remotest parts of India, and expand our engagement with the rest of the world. Our desire to build a developed nation, a Viksit Bharat by 2047, will only come true when we treat design not merely as a cosmetic enhancement, but as a strategic national capability that connects technology with people and translates ideas into impactful systems, products, and experiences. India's greatest strength is its diversity. Every few kilometers, our culture, food, textiles, language, dialects change. This heritage is our greatest design capital. By integrating this diversity into contemporary design, we can create products and experiences that the world cannot easily replicate. Over the last decade, the National Institute of Design has evolved from a single premier institution into a national network and an institution of national importance. It has moved beyond aesthetic design to solving technical and social problems, strengthening its reputation as a leading design school. This year's budget takes the next step by announcing a new National Institute of Design in the eastern part of India. Our design industry is expanding rapidly, but we still face a shortage of trained Indian designers who can serve the needs of our growing economy and also contribute to global design discourse. The new NID in the East is our commitment to bridge this gap and democratize access to world-class design education. The Eastern region is a powerhouse of culture, crafts, textiles, and industry. But since it did not have a very strong design ecosystem, we could not really exploit its true potential. The new NID will connect traditional craft clusters, MSMEs, emerging industries with cutting-edge design education. It will also help artisans move up the value chain and support MSMEs in product diversification. Our vision goes beyond a single campus. Indian culture and civilizational knowledge must sit at the heart of design education, not as an optional add-on. Design is central to Atmanirbhar Bharat. And if we have to create a brand India, a brand that India can be synonymous with quality, innovation, it can be recognized for new products, new technologies, especially in a world which is being reshaped by artificial intelligence, immersive media, and robotics, where technology without thoughtful design can actually deepen inequality and reduce usability. We all need to put our heads together and prepare the Indian mindset to adopt new technologies, exploit them for the benefit of 1.4 billion Indians, and ensure a better future for our young men and women. To the young designers and students, I say, you are not just preparing for a career, but you are preparing yourself to contribute to nation building. The choices you make in a product, a service, or through digital interface will shape how India is experienced by its own citizens or by the world. Going forward, our collective effort must translate vision into action. I propose a 5-point agenda for your kind consideration. 1, let us position the National Institutes of Design as knowledge hubs for Indian design. And through each of these campuses, take the message and importance of design or innovative designing to the people in different regions across the country. 2, let us deepen our industry, particularly the MSME and academic linkages. Maybe we could set up design clinics. We could have some live cluster projects. We'll have to make design very simple to engage with and involve the common man, our handicraft people, our artisans, our handloom weavers and traditional workers to see how design can start defining the India story. 3, we must create service and brand India design labs to improve the citizen experience in governance, tourism, and healthcare. 4, we need to build joint artificial intelligence, and frontier technology design labs with technical institutes so that the linkages between students and industry can be expanded. And lastly, we must ensure that the new NID coming up in Eastern India is a model campus. It must promote public-private partnerships and also promote the not-for-profits who are working amongst our artisans, our handicraft and handloom players to help them take India to the rest of the world. Let this webinar produce a clear roadmap so that design becomes a central pillar of our journey towards a developed nation, a Viksit Bharat by 2047, and the new National Institute of Design emerges as a global symbol of innovation rooted in our rich traditions. Thank you very much, friends. My best wishes to all of you, and really grateful to the organizers of this webinar for putting together so many very interesting subjects that I saw on the agenda, and for giving me an opportunity to talk about our plans for the National Institute of Design. Thank you very much.
Shri Piyush Goyal, thank you, sir, for your remarks. I now turn to Shri Dharmendra Pradhan, Honorable Minister for Education, to deliver the closing remarks. Sir.
नमस्कार मित्रों, पोस्ट बजट वेबिनार सीरीज की कंक्लूडिंग सेशन की फोर्थ एंड कंक्लूडिंग सेशन की आज समापन सत्र में मेरे साथ उपस्थित मेरे वरिष्ठ सहयोगी आदरणीय पीयूष गोयल जी, वीरेंद्र कुमार जी, अश्विनी वैष्णव जी, राव इंद्रजीत सिंह जी, डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी, सभी विभागों की आदरणीय सेक्रेटरीज, वरिष्ठ अधिकारी मित्रगण और डोमेन एक्सपर्ट्स और पॉलिसी मेकर, सभी अन्य साथीगण। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने आज सुबह उसका उद्घाटन किया। दिन भर आज सार्थक चर्चा हुई। मेरे पास जो जानकारी है, जो हमारे 7 विषयों में ऑल आर इंटरकनेक्टेड, 5 विभाग की 7 विषयों की जो विस्तार से सुझाव और चर्चा हुई, उसमें से लगभग 1.5 लाख पार्टिसिपेंट विभिन्न टेक्नोलॉजी प्लेटफॉर्म पे जुड़े। मैं सभी को बधाई देता हूं। इस प्रकार की भारत सरकार की, प्रधानमंत्री जी की जो विजन है, पार्टिसिपेटरी गवर्नेंस मॉडल डेवलप करना, उसमें हम लोग आज एक बहुत बड़ा महत्व कदम आगे बढ़े। सभी मेरे आदरणीय सहयोगियों ने और जो हमारे डोमेन एक्सपर्ट ने, जिन्होंने समअप किया इन 7 विषयों को, सबने फोकस तरीके से जो 7 विषय दिया गया था, एजुकेशन टू एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड एंटरप्राइज, AVGC, NID, 5 यूनिवर्सिटी टाउनशिप, 500 STEM स्टूडेंट्स के लिए गर्ल्स हॉस्टल, दिव्यांग कौशल योजना और 4 टेलीस्कोपिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फैसिलिटी। मित्रों, हमारी सरकार की नीति रही है सबके साथ सबकी विकास, और हमारी NEP में हमारी सारे की जो एक मूल सूत्र है, राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति। राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति ने इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन और एक्सेसिबल एजुकेशन के बारे में जोर दिया गया है। इस बार की बजट एक बिंदु जिस पर आज हम लोगों ने विस्तार से चर्चा किया है, सब उस दिशा में एक महत्वपूर्ण कदम है। मैं 2-3 छोटे-छोटे विषय को कह के मेरे बात को समाप्त करूंगा। जो विषय चर्चा हुई है उसको रिपीटेशन की आवश्यकता नहीं है। इस बार के बजट में ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी एक नई आशा देश की युवाओं में जन्म किया है, उत्पन्न किया है, जिसके बारे में विस्तार से मेरे मित्र अश्विनी वैष्णव जी ने कहा है। इसकी उनका विजन कहा है, उनकी विभाग की विजन कहा है। देश में डिजाइन थिंकिंग के लिए, क्रिएटिव इकोनॉमी के लिए, क्रिएटिव लैब के लिए स्कूली स्तर से बच्चों को एक इमेजिनेशन, इनोवेशन, हमारी देश की शिक्षा पद्धति अभी रट्टा वाला एजुकेशन, मेमोराइजेशन है। मेमोराइजेशन से उसको डिजाइन थिंकर तक, क्रिटिकल थिंकर तक ले जाने में ये निर्णय ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी के माध्यम से एक पहल सिर्फ क्रिएटिव इकोनॉमी नहीं बनाएगी, एक इनोवेटर बनाएगी समाज को बड़े मात्रा में। इस बजट में उसकी रिफ्लेक्शन है। एक दिव्यांग कौशल योजना, इसके बारे में भी बजट में इस बार उल्लेख किया गया है। मैं कुछ समीक्षा पढ़ रहा था, विश्व की एक अच्छी खासी आबादी जाने अनजाने में आज की भारत की जो परिभाषा है दिव्यांगजन, उस कैटेगरी में आते हैं। किसी ने कल मेरे को समझाया, भारत की स्टूडेंट पॉपुलेशन की लगभग 10% दिव्यांगजन है। किसी ने कहा इसकी वेरिफिकेशन करने लायक स्टैटिस्टिक्स है। 7.5 करोड़ लोग दिव्यांगजन की कैटेगरी में आते हैं। उनके बारे में हमने 2016 में नीति बनाई, नई आइडेंटिटी बनाई, उसको बास्केट को बड़ा किया, लेकिन अभी समय आया है इसके बारे में मीनिंगफुल उनको एम्पावरमेंट करने के लिए। इसके बारे में इस बार बजट में कहा गया है दिव्यांगजन कौशल योजना। मैं भी देख रहा था, अल्बर्ट आइंस्टाइन क्वांटम फिजिक्स की विश्व की विद्वान थे, लेकिन उनको सिंपल अरिथमेटिक्स में, मैथमेटिकल कैलकुलेशन में गलती होती थी। वो एक सहायक रखे थे जो उनको मैथमेटिकल कैलकुलेशन में मदद करेगा। वो दिव्यांगजन थे। थॉमस एडिसन जो जनरल इलेक्ट्रिक की प्रमुख थे, जिन्होंने इलेक्ट्रिक बल्ब को दुनिया के सामने लाया, वो दिव्यांगजन थे। अलेक्जेंडर ग्राहम बेल जिन्होंने टेलीफोन को दुनिया को दिया, वो दिव्यांगजन थे। हेनरी फोर्ड जो मोटर कार की प्रमुख थे, वो दिव्यांगजन थे। राइट ब्रदर्स, स्टीव जॉब्स, बिल व्हिल और हेलेन ब्रोक जैसे ये सारे विश्व की बड़े बड़े आविष्कार जिन्होंने किया, ये सब दिव्यांगजन थे। मित्रों, इस बार भारत की बजट ने इसको स्पेसिफिक करके एक स्किल डेवलपमेंट प्लान बनाना, उनकी एम्पावरमेंट की सोचना, ये बहुत बड़ी एक महत्वपूर्ण कदम है। 4 टेलीस्कोपिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फैसिलिटी बनाई जाएगी। हमारे देश में स्पेस साइंस की दुनिया खुल रही है। सरकार की दायित्व से उसको धीरे धीरे प्राइवेट सेक्टर की ओर लिया जा रहा है, स्टार्टअप की दुनिया से जोड़ा जा रहा है। इसमें ये 4 टेलीस्कोप बहुत बड़ा मददगार होगी। सारा विषय बड़े विस्तार से चर्चा हुई है। अभी चुनौती है, सुबह भी प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा, ये इस एस्पिरेशन को, विकसित भारत के एस्पिरेशन को पूरा करने के लिए बजट में जो स्ट्रैटेजी सब बनाई गई, इस प्रकार की पैनल ने इतने बड़े पैमाने पर सुझाव दिया है, चर्चा किया है, विषय को नीचे लेने की प्रयास किया है, उस दिशा में हमने एक 1 स्टेप अहेड लिया है। लेकिन मेरा अपेक्षा रहेगा ये सब विषय एजुकेशन, एम्प्लॉयमेंट, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, ट्रिपल ई से लेके टेलीस्कोपिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फैसिलिटी तक सारा विषय संलग्न है। आज देश में लड़कियां स्टेम एजुकेशन में आगे बढ़ रही, उनकी रिसर्च में आगे हो रहा है। ये सारे को आने वाले निर्दिष्ट समय में हमने कैसे अप्रैल अनुवाद इसको ऑन फील्ड उतारेंगे, इसमें से इस वेबिनार की सार्थकता है। मैं आप सबको फिर एक बार आभार प्रकट करता हूं भारत सरकार की ओर से इस वेबिनार में शामिल होने के लिए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for summing up the scope and potential of this webinar. And before we close, let me invite Ms. Nidhi Chibbar, CEO, Niti Aayog, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Honorable Ministers, distinguished speakers, esteemed experts, and all the participants. As we come to the close of today's webinar, it is my privilege to extend a sincere vote of thanks to all those who have contributed to the success of this session. At the outset, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Honorable Ministers for sharing their valuable insights and perspectives. We are grateful to Honorable Minister of Science and Technology, Honorable Minister of State for Planning, Honorable Minister of Information and Broadcasting, Honorable Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment, Honorable Minister of Commerce, and Honorable Minister of Education for their thoughtful remarks and for outlining the government's vision across these important initiatives. Today's discussions were enriched by the outcomes of 5 breakout sessions, which covered forward-looking themes like high-powered education to employment and enterprise standing committee, AVGC content creator labs, the new National Institute of Design, university townships, girls' hostels for STEM institutions, Divyangjan Kaushal Yojana, and the 4 telescopic infrastructure facilities for strengthening India's scientific capabilities. I extend my sincere appreciation to the experts and stakeholders who contributed their insights to these deliberations. I would also like to thank all the participating ministries and departments whose active engagement made today's discussions meaningful and productive. The insights emerging from today's deliberations will be valuable in taking forward the implementation of the announcements made in the Union budget and in advancing our shared vision of building a Viksit Bharat. Finally, I would also like to place on record my appreciation for NIC for providing the technical platform and ensuring seamless conduct of this webinar, and to all the organizing teams whose efforts made this event possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And with that, we conclude this webinar. Thank you, honorable ministers, distinguished participants, for your time and engagement. Wish you all a pleasant evening ahead. Namaskar.